This is 100% teddy bear.
This is so hot, so 60s.
It is so great.
Where love it lies.
See you soon.
See you, Papa.
I'm suspecting you're not going to buy into Kenny's line that he always likes to quote from Brian Gissin of literature is 50 years behind painting. Would you buy into that or not?
Oh, I generally would. I mean, this certainly if you're talking about poetry. I mean, well, in other genres of literature would be even more ridiculous and more abundant. You know, like the idea of narrative or fiction, the idea of creating verisimilitude based on characters and plot situations and things. I mean, it's completely hokey Victorian notion. Creative writing people are generally total hacks. They're living in some previous century, or they're living in some previous planet. They're still involved with this therapeutic, crappy ideology about letting students express their inner selves and these little epiphanies of lyric blah blah. I mean, it's a joke. It's a terrible joke.
I chose poetry. I see these works as being directly aimed at poetry. Direct hits on poetry, really, if you want to put it that way. Poetry is... The leading poets in America who get the prizes are the equivalent of academic 19th century style figurative painters. These are people that have no idea that modernism ever happened. From Hit Citations. 1. This is the dawning of the age of malaria. 2. Another one fights the dust. 3. Eyeing little girls with padded pants. 4. Teenage spacemen. We're all spacemen. 5. A gay pair of guys put up a parking lot. 5.1. It tastes very nice. Food in the parking lot. 6. One thing I can tell you is you got to eat cheese. 7. She was a gay stripper. 8. Fly like a Negro to the sea. 9. Hey, you, get off of my cow. 10. Oh, we are sailing. Yes, give Jesus pants. 10.1. All we are saying, give hippies a chance. 10.2. All we are saying is good piece of cheese. 10.3. All we are saying is kids need a dad. 11. She's giving me head citations. I'm interested in defamiliarization of normative structure is in language, and it's very simple to do. It's all, the whole project is based on reframing normative language, putting it into another container, and suddenly it becomes new. We don't need the new sentence. The old sentence reframed is good enough. This is what we do every day, all day long. Some of us call it writing, shifting material from one form into another. This is what we do. We organize our information. I believe that information management is the way we are writing now and will continue to write in the future. I will go even further by saying that I believe that writers don't need to, quote, add any more new texts in the world. The Douglas Hubler, there's enough objects in the world. I don't feel the need to make any more. Right now, it's become very apparent to us that there's enough language in the world that we need not create any new language. Rather, the interest is in the remix, the accumulation, and the filtering. We become intelligent agents, making our way through this massive language that's now at our fingertips. We are intelligent agents, and that is the job of the writer now, is to become an intelligent agent. And each person then, each writer then figures out their way to carve their own path through this massive information, hence making each writer a unique writer. So I'm not in any way suggesting that we become robots, and in fact, it's quite impossible. The way I make my way through this massive information is quite different than the way you'll make your way through it.
There's a couple of things that I think are important here. One is that, that language writing really is, an extension or a last hurrah of modernism for me. It doesn't really sort of step into the issues that, for me personally, that are most compelling about postmodernism. So in that modernist tradition or trajectory, you are still really looking at a kind of make it new aesthetic or a make it new moment. And I think Kenny's right, and I would agree with this, that make it new is not really very interesting after 1990. And you have a lot of other choices. Make it relevant, make it fucked up, make it all come together. And I think, especially I think as a kind of post-millennial gesture, there's a kind of inventory in the air. Instead of making it new, how do we collect what we already have been making new for 100 years?
Okay, so Kenny, do you want to tell us about number 111? I mean, you often talk about the hook or the wrapper for each of your book works, and I just wonder what the wrapper was for this one.
Over the course of 4 years, I collected words that ended in the sound of schwa, which I'm told encompasses not only but ear, or, and related, all related things around the r. When I began to read the book, which I'll read from in just a second, it seemed to resonate with what I'd heard about the Sanskrit word om, which actually is pronounced which goes from the back of the throat to the mouth and then out through the lips. So r, ear, it's all about swallowing and spitting out and pronouncing. So over the course of 4 years, I just simply the title is 2793-10-296, so during those dates, anything that I heard that ended in that schwa word, that schwa sound, I collected and alphabetized and organized by syllable. So the first chapter goes one syllable words A to Z. The second chapter goes 2 syllable words A to Z. And we finally end up at the end with a 7,228 syllable chapter, which is D.H. Lawrence's Rocking Horse Winter in its entirety, the only constraint being the fact that it ends with the word winner, and anything that came before it was counted as syllables. Ahs, or, ahs, or, ba, 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 bar, barge, bear, beer, blur, blur, blah, blair, blear, blur, board, bra, bur, caw, char, chair, sheer, cheers, share, chair, choir, chord, clear, chorus, crore, cur, czar, door, da, dare, door, dear, dire, door, road, rear, dry, ear, air, air, fair, four, fire, flare, floor, fleer, floor, fours, ford, fours, fra, fur, gaga, go, gear, nor, guard, gyre, hair, hard, here, haw, here, higher, horde, whores, hour, ya, year, your, jeers, cockacor, care, near, nord, near, lair, lord, lear, lie, lord, mama, mas, more, mere, my, more, Papa, pause, papa, pear, poor, pears, poor, quare, shore, park, walk, where, raw, sausage, scare, smear, schwa, score, scour, sear, shaw, shore, share, shore, shear, schmear, shore, snore, sure, sir, slore, smear, smore, sneer, snore, sore, spow, spaw, spare, spore, spear, sphere, spaw, spear, spur, spare, square, stare, star, steered, store, stored, sword, stare, sword, ta, tear, what was, our, twat, the, veer, vor, war, where, wire, where, wire, yar, your, za, ja. Ninth syllable. I, alone, shepherd of his feather. I am paid squat for my slave labor. I asked, knowing damn well the answer. I believe gay rights are neither. I bet they raise your rates every year. I buck, I snort, I whinny, I tear. I don't have Sim City anymore. I don't want to be called Yo Nigga. I dream of Jesus and 9 others. I found that remark very obscure. I got out in 1984. I got the fever for the flavor. I had a dentist who was over. I had glass sticking out of my ears. I had to go see a doctor. I hate you. Who do you think you are? I haven't answered my phone in years. I hit him with a bag of quarters. I is dropped unless the reader hears. I just want to mow down panhandlers. I like to fart in elevators. I never sang for my grandfather. I often dress up like a hamster. I own my own body, but I share. I put out a large stack of paper. I rapidly read printed matter. I rarely shoot down an idea. I seem not to bother anymore. I shot an arrow into the air. I slick my hand up with warm water. I still haven't made my mind up here. 43. Yeah! I pictured smashing his face and kicking his scrotum back into his torso, digging the fucker's eyes out, going for a field goal with his head over and over. Even if it's not good for us, we become addicted and we become enslaved. And when we become enslaved, we are constantly thinking of that thing where we are, from the mountains to the prairies. Fuck Miss America. To the oceans. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh. White with foam. 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't want your fucking war, God bless America. Grab me, Chewie. I'm slipping. Hold on. Grab it. Almost. You got it. Gently now. All right. Easy, easy. Hold me, Chewie. With little higher and just a little higher. He found himself, as any writer can confirm, having to produce by the end of the day a series of words arranged in a way that has never been imagined before. History that ends up on a page and no longer exists in the past. It only has a present and a future. It is, in effect, a score to be realized by the reader.
There is much more an emphasis in conceptual writing on the reader being an active proponent of the meaning, of actively engaging with the work.
Well, I mean, that is a primary concern of language writing, was its political concern, was that the writer is no longer is not coming from on high and speaking down to the audience, but instead is presenting a field of disparate and disjunctive language that is meant to be put back together by the reader, so as that the reader and writer are somehow on the same plane, a sort of a readerly text, it was coming off of a different time. It was coming off of a different time. Here's a problem with it. I mean, I was going to talk about Marxism, as I was going to talk about the 70s and sort of socio-political structures. But in fact, where the work failed, and this is very interesting, is that it had a utopian vision that the actual reader would pick up the pieces and put them back together again. But the problem was it lacked a readership. Okay, is that yes, people read it, but more people didn't read it. So it's making this grand social gesture of saying, come and put me back together. And people were absolutely repelled by the form and refused to reconstruct that language, okay? So in fact, they were very traditional in demanding a readership, a participatory readership, almost putting a gun to the head of the reader and saying, come and reconstruct this language. When in fact, no, people weren't interested in reconstructing that language. And I think this is one of the great tragedies, because it's very sad. It demanded a readership. I don't demand a readership. I sort of start off by saying, I assume no readership.
Kenny said in the blog about thinkership, that word works for me. I think with a project like Day, if you read, I read, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 pages, and I love it. I find it a really important text for me. I don't think I need to read any more than that. But poets aren't used to that. And now that Kenny really is in this community of poets, and poets are the ones who are publishing the work and writing on the work and judging the work. Poets are really challenged here to think about reading in a different way. The experience of Day does not happen while you're reading the book. The experience happens like right now. We're having a conversation about it. It didn't happen for me when I read the book in this way. But I had that experience, I remember as a young person reading Stein. It wasn't really about what happened on the page. It was about walking away from it and thinking about it on the street. And, it's much more, I think, the experience we have when we look at art. So I think it's really successful in that way and really challenging. Language writing came up against the same thing. It was like, how do we read this? But the difference was that the intention was that you were going to read it and that you could analyze it and that you were meant to read it line by line. That's not the intention with a book like Day.
I often say I don't have a readership, I have a thinkership. So I don't have the expectation that people are going to read. And I actually think it's very interesting because I think that a writer often writes with the expectation that somebody's going to read the book, and if they don't get read, if the book isn't read, writers get really offended. I say, I don't expect you to read my book, but you should know the wrapper, as I call it, and that maybe almost be enough for some people, and that's fine. For other people, of course, it's there to engage with, and I'm told that it can be a mesmerizing and hypnotic experience to read these books. I don't find them mesmerizing or hypnotic. I find them boring. I can't possibly read them. I fall asleep when I proofread the things, But I love the fact that they exist.
I think that that's one of the challenges of this kind of work, is that there are different ways to think about reading. And we have to think about, maybe that word isn't really working, maybe we need another word.
The book Fidget was a recording of every move my body made on Bloomsday of 1997, from the moment I woke up till the moment I went to sleep. Eyelids open, tongue runs across upper lip, moving from left side of mouth to right, following arc of lip. Swallow, jaws clench, grind, stretch, swallow. Head lifts, bent right arm brushes pillow into back of head. Arm straightens, counterclockwise, twist, thrusts elbow towards ceiling. Tongue leaves interior of mouth, passing through teeth. Tongue slides back into mouth. Palm corkscrews. Thumb stretches. Forefingers wrap. Clench. Elbow bends. Thumb moves toward shoulder. Joint of thumb meets biceps. Elbow turns upwards as knuckles of fist jam neck. Right hand clenches. Thumb rubs knuckles. Fist to right shoulder. Right elbow thrusts. Knuckles touch side of neck. Hands unfurl. Back of hands press against flat of neck. Heels of hands push into jaws. Elbows raise. Fingers wrap around neck. Thumbs tuck. Hands move toward jaw. Cover ears. Tips of fingers graze side of head. Hairs tickle tips as they pass. Thumbs trail behind fingers. Arms extend. Fingers unfurl. Shoulders stretch. Arms out. Legs bend at knee. Pelvis thrust right. Left knee drops to bed. Right knee drops to bed. Left leg extends. Right hand grabs. Elbow moves toward nose. Touches. Fingers open. Air from lungs expelled through nose. Thumb and forefinger pinch, wiping mucus from lip. Mucus pools in right nostril. Wipes. Index finger blocks right nostril. Exhale. Mucus out. Right nostril. Elbow extends. Fingers open. Fingers caress outside of thumb. Breathe.
It's funny. I don't see so much the tear as I do the build-up. I think that language has been torn enough and ruptured enough. I think the entire 20th century was based around the rip. I think what we're interested in now is the accumulation and the reshaping and the rebuilding of this once fractured vessel. Because after modernism, there was no more work to do. Language had been pulverized so and atomized so much that there's really nothing else to do. You're going to take a grain of sand and chop it up even further, or are you actually going to forget about deconstruction and begin some sort of reconstruction, acknowledging the kind of and rebuilding this vessel, but also acknowledging that the cracks in it. We're not going back, but instead we have to kind of look at holes again. I'm not interested in rips. I'm actually interested in wholeness. I'm interested in a articulated sentence that is semantically correct. I'm interested in is semantic intactness. I'm not interested in atomization. I think that was a very 20th century concept. Now, I think if we defamiliarize once again our sense of intact language and reframe it and put it somewhere else, it becomes extremely disjunctive once again. So it's a different means of just getting at disjunction through wholeness. And it's to me it's very fascinating. I'm interested in things remaining as they are and not tearing them. Okay, this is a book called Soliloquy. It was every word I spoke from the moment I woke up on a Monday morning till the moment I went to sleep on the following Sunday night. It's completely unedited, and I wanted to see how much one average person speaks in a week. I wanted to actually weigh language, and I came out, in fact, with a, I guess about a 500-page book. Now, I talk a lot, so this may not be an average person. How about I join you in bed? What do you, how about a little activity? Can I? Why? I thought it was, okay, kill myself, unless I fucked you first. Can I put my finger up your ass? All the way up? Why? That's on tape. Just to spice up the tape a little bit, right? I said that just to spice up the tape. I love you. Hoo-ha. It's not my fault that you're in such a in such a bad mood. Really? Really? Stop. Oh yeah. Your body's so good now. No, really, you're thin and so good. Strong, muscular, and pretty, and soft and smooth. I'm getting a lick. It's going to get even more soundtrack to head. Okay, all right, I'll turn it off. Okay, I'll turn it off. I'll turn it off. I can't turn it off. We already had one of me getting blown. That was all the tape. Sure it was. I started the tape first thing this morning. So it's all, no, it's over. And I'll tell you another thing. There's no part of you that's on this tape. Your voice or your actions or nothing will appear. It's all me. Oh, big deal. It's something I never heard before. It's noises that I've never heard from you before. No, I don't. No, you don't. You too. Yeah, that's a good thing I get my way. You love your pussy licked, and it's a good thing you get your way because you get your pussy licked. I get mine, you get your pussy licked. I'm not saying anything that I don't normally say. Why? Oh, well, be on the tape. I can't turn the tape off. You're probably not get anything because there's no language. The tape will shut off if there's no language. I have it programmed. I mean, it was slurping. I won't catch you. I mean, why? Come on, this is art. I mean, look what I do for your art. Look what I do for your art. Look what I do for your art. Look what you do for your get naked in front of audience of thousands, and you're crawling around and you can see your pussy, and here she says, I don't want to be on the tape. It's so contradictory. And it's okay for your art, but it's not okay for my art. And I in the one with the boredoms, and you're crawling under the plastic, and you can see your vagina, and yet you can see the whole pussy. Of course you can when you're crawling around, but do I ever say anything? No. It's for your art. And so this art is like our life. And then you're saying, no, we can't have it. It's only special when it's like art, when it's like life, you can't have it. I get it. No. I'm making the most ridiculous argument because you're like giving me a hard time about my art project. Why don't you say that instead of saying, I don't want that on tape? I mean, is it a joke? These tapes, nobody will ever hear these tapes, Cheryl. How can you say you're self-conscious when you're like the nude artist of the century? It's pretty close in head. So this is stimulated too. It's mediated by the tape medium. I can't believe. Look, if we had no language, I will if there's no language. No, there's no language. I want to give you a demonstration. Watch this red light. See? I'm talking now.
Now I'm talking. See? It's like magic. And you don't have the highest voice of anyone. I don't speak. Do you have the highest voice ever? Call me Harpo. I'm going to clean up. Good night. No, fuck it. I hate sex, especially with you. Go to bed.
Well, one of the things I've been interested in with he talks about, being the OCR demon and peeling language off the page. And I think this is something that is new, is that it is about technology. I mean, I love that wonderful quote from Jackson Pollock in 1951, where he says, every age must find its own technique. He's basically saying, for Christ's sake, I can't paint a naked woman on a couch. In 1951, when the atom bomb's just gone off and there's the radio and there's aeroplanes flying between countries, it's a completely ridiculous concept to do. And although these language poets from before, across the 20th century, have materialized or concretized the word, have played with this kind of different relationship to language, there is something that Kenny and others are able to do now by shifting large quantities of text through the internet. He talks about peeling it off and the materiality of language, that you can almost pour it, and the fluidity of language into almost any container. And for me, okay, yeah, Bruce and other people have been ripping away context, they've been ripping away containers for a long time, and that's perfectly valid. But using the internet and using this technology, it allows the language to be shifted at great speed and at great quantities, and it's creating some really new, interesting works, objects that are really kind of problematic. For me, it's Susan Sontag. She talks about art has to rupture your sense of order, and that for me it does. I mean, I get books like Day, and I'm like, this is really disturbing.
It's funny you would say that quote from Pollock. Rimbaud says the same thing, in 1850, that art has to be absolutely modern and relevant. And Chaucer actually says the same, out with the old books and with the new. It is, that's the exciting thing about Kenny's work, I think, and this whole movement, is that it is present, it's relevant, and it's relevant to this technology. And I've said elsewhere that poets and text artists are living in a very privileged moment where the central invention of our day is language based, and so to not take that on seems almost irresponsible to me. I mean, how can you not have a language, have a dialogue in poetry and technology at this moment? So again, if we look at sort of where this is coming from in terms of the history of the avant-garde and language writing, etc., the kind of destruction of syntax that was really important that took place 20 years ago isn't really what we find in technology. What we find in technology, in what Kenny's interest is especially, is to take these large chunks of language because we can. In my own practice, I take large chunks of language from the internet because I can. And if it's on my computer, it's mine. That's the way I think of it. So I think it's really relevant.
Okay, so this is a book called Day, which is a transcription of every word and letter that appeared in a copy of the New York Times from Friday, September 1st, 2000. Wherever there was a word or letter, it was transcribed and republished into a 900-page book. The New York Times, Friday, September 1st, 2000. LKA 17, back to school sale, Girls Arizona on sale, sale $9.99, top, sale $7.99, reg $11.99, Cotton top SXL for girls size 7 to 18, sale $15.99. Top sale $15.99. Reg $19.99. Fleece crewneck polyester cotton SXL for girls size 7 to 18, sale $15.99. Cargo jeans sale $15.99. Reg $19.99. Flare leg cotton cargo jeans girls sizes 7 to 16, slims also available, sale $19.99. Jeans sale $19.99. Reg $24.99. Girls sizes 7 to 16, slims also available, sale $19.99. Reg $14.99. Next era SXL for girls sizes 7 to 18, B sale $21.99. Reg $24.99. LEI flare leg jeans girls sizes 7 to 16, slims also available, sale $21.99. Jeans sale $21.99. Reg $26.99. Xana D belted flare leg jeans girls sizes 7 to 16, girls rock sale $11.99. Top A I E B L sale $19.99. Top sale $11.99. Reg $14.99. Anxiety puckered top SXL for girls sizes 7 to 18, sale $21.99. LEI or Xana dye flare jeans sale $12.99. Jeans D sale $9.99. Shirt A Z Kids multi-gear sale. Arizona fills in the details. Multi-pockets, bungees, zippers, cool fabric C sale $9.99. Ray $12.99. Pieced logo shirt boys sizes S, XL, D sale $12.99. Reg $14.99. Sale prices effective 8/27 to 9/4/2000 unless otherwise noted. Percentage off regular prices is shown. Regular prices are offering prices which may not have resulted in actual sales. Now prices represent savings off regular prices which may vary. Any event designated as a sale excludes value merchandise. Merchandise selection may vary from one JCPenney store to another.
With Day, people get up in the morning, they say, I've read the newspaper. 10 minutes later, they're done. They throw it in the recycling bin. I've read the newspaper. I'm going to tell you, you've never read the newspaper. You have never read the newspaper. And after doing that book, I can never read the newspaper in quite the same way.
And it's disturbing, it's difficult, and it's challenging. But, maybe that's the good thing, that kind of difficulty of encountering something like Day and thinking, what the hell is this thing? And I found it really beautiful, the fact he stripped all the headers, the shouters, the font sizes, the text and image, and he literally just poured this material back into a single font and a single point size. I became aware of the fascistic nature of news, because I just take it for granted on a daily basis because I read in a conventional manner, I read a newspaper, I just accept the way it's delivered to me. But they're incredibly sophisticated, the structural arrangements that they deliver the news to you in. And it's only when it's removed that I became aware of it, and I think that's one of Kenny's key strategies as an artist moving into poetry, is someone who makes the invisible visible.
You see, Day is the greatest book ever written. It's got love, it's got passion, it's got war, it's got hate, it's got heroicism, it's got peace, it's got greatness, it's got athleticism. I mean, it's got the most amazing stories in the world in that thing, better stories than any fiction writer could ever possibly construct. This is the most interesting book in the world, Day. And the reason is that the newspaper is the most interesting book written every single day. A book, and this is McLuhan says this, every day a new book is written. And not only once, not only in the New York Times, but different book of the same magnitude is written hundreds and hundreds of times around the globe each day, only to be discarded the next day. An entire new one is written. And this is, fiction is silly after the newspaper.
You do get this flattening of language, which is very Warholian. I was struck when you came to York College. It was, for me, it was just a Warhol moment when you read out this list, which you've performed for us again here, of clothes, of vestments, of articles, and their sizes and their descriptions. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's just like language just disappeared, just completely flattened out. And
I think, and again, nothing was really touched in that. The works weren't shredded at all. It was simply taking that thing and reframing it and flattening the hell out of it and having it lose its meaning and its context, its economy, and becoming, very rhythmic, very lyrical. the repetition of things. You know, it's also the thing with language. It's very hard to get away from rhythm in language. I think, you know, this language, the one I know, English, is set up to very rarely can you actually get away from rhythm. And I think that you know, the modernists really tried, but I don't think they did a very good job. I think the language itself is so rhythmic that even if you're reading something like a clothing ad, it's very hard to get away from that beautiful sense of rhythm. In the English language, people have been trying too hard, I think. I think people have been trying too hard to write. I don't think we need to try very hard at all. It's all there. Warhol, again, to get back to Warhol, said that the movies were not really the action and the screen. They were purposely no action so that the action happened in the audience. There would be chatter between two people there. There'd be people getting up, leaving, coming, going. And then there's also all the action in the mind, the subjectivity, the thoughts, the dreams, the fantasies that are happening in the internal mind while this so-quote blank screen is showing. So actually, Warhol moves the theater into, the theater becomes the performance space. And the movie is simply a catalyst for a performance that happens again and again spontaneously. That happens every time anybody's in the movie theater, but instead we give ourselves away and we throw ourselves onto that fantasy on the screen. I mean, this was so smart, ignoring, again, the familiarity of the mundane that's around us. In fact, this was, you know, sort of a Judson Theater dance approach, was that walking across the room is an act of dance in and of itself. So you know, again, it's all these ideas I believe taken into language.
Now, I do think, because I'm looking at the Bernstein stuff as well, I do think it is an attack on language, not in a negative sense, but in the sense that they want to try and find a better relationship to language. And it goes back to this modernist idea that you test the boundaries in order to define more strongly your relationship with the subject.
I think my sort of hesitation about the notion of it being an attack, I think, is also that in some ways it's sort of a celebration of language, and that for all of Goldsmith's talk about sort of falling asleep and that no one would really want to read this and that he himself doesn't want to really read the works that he produces, there's something very celebratory. There's something, there's an incredible energy in wanting to spend this sort of time on these works and to produce such volumes, which seems to me to not just be purely a sort of aggressive attack.
Yeah, I didn't mean an attack, as I say, in a negative sense. I do find in the way that he'll define more closely this relationship to language, going back to that, where is it? Greenberg, the self-reflexive approach. I'm totally agreeing with you. I think because he loves language so much and he enjoys it so much, he's really testing the boundaries of language so he can take possession of it more clearly. So it's only attacking it in order to form a stronger relationship with it.
I think the modernists came to know language better was again ultimately through deconstruction, which I actually consider to be part and parcel of modernism. This book is called The Weather. It's an entire year's worth of 1-minute radio weather report transcriptions from the local New York news station.
Well, for too long, the air felt like it was coming from Greenland, but from today it's coming from Shamrock, Texas, Cloverleaf, and also Greenville, South Carolina. It's going to be mild, 64, partly cloudy tonight, low 48. Tomorrow, partly sunny, high 57, chillier with winds on Wednesday with cloud and sun, high 46. It's likely to rain on Thursday, currently in Midtown, 49 degrees, relative humidity 83%, wind northeast at 3 miles per hour, 49 headed to 64. Well, there's going to be some sunshine today. The temperature will likely get up to 60. Interior sections can get into the low 60s, maybe not like 70 like we got yesterday, but still pretty comfortable. Then tonight will be partly cloudy. It'll chill down into the 30s. A cooler day tomorrow, the wind off the water, a mix of clouds and sun. High tomorrow, 44. Clouding up followed by some rain Thursday, especially late Thursday and into Friday night, with Friday's high back into the 50s. Right now it's 50, 60, partly cloudy, or partly sunny in Central Florida. Today going up to 59. Oh, we are looking at
The weather is simply a record of what happened over the course of a season. But in fact, the absurdity of reducing meteorological occurrences to a 1 minute reduction is the most useless and ridiculous thing in the world. This is the most complex system, happens to be the weather system, the atmosphere in which we breathe, and it's reduced down to something that either aids or abets your commute. I mean, it's absolutely insane.
And that is potentially why so many readers get so angry about what he's doing, I think, because he's pointing out that what we think we have a very clear relationship to, we don't at all, that we don't actually hear the way we speak, that we don't necessarily hear all the ums and the ahs, and the incredible repetition. Weather really points out just the endless redundancy and repetition that we're subjected to, that we somehow think is not as fascistic and really sort of insane how much repetition we're subjected to. I don't think that people necessarily. I know I've tried to talk about uncreative writing and what that is, and people initially think that it's just trying to write something that's boring. But when they begin to understand that he's actually encouraging students to plagiarize or encouraging us to actually just throw away notions of ownership or proprietary or copyright or intellectual property, suddenly that's much more threatening to people.
It's disruptive, and no one would have thought, the way things were sort of going in kind of late modernist and maybe even some of the postmodern writing, what people think of as postmodern, no one would have thought that returning to language that was so comprehensible would have been so disruptive. That the idea of the opaque didn't really sort of carry itself beyond the 1990s in terms of writing. So it's really, it's really disruptive. People are really pissed off. It's really disruptive. It breaks down all of our expectations about what a book of poetry should be, about even what a book should be, about what creativity is, about what the imagination is all about. Even a kind of experimental writing community, and from moderate to radical, doesn't accept this work because it likes to say this isn't writing, right? So I find that so curious and interesting, and there is this kind of interesting history. I mean, I think the same thing happened with Ulysses. The same thing happened with On the Road. I mean, same thing happened with Whitman. This isn't writing, as if that mattered, as if that were the point. So, okay, it's not writing. Okay, it is writing. What's the difference? What's that all about? And especially this late in the game, when so many people have written so much about blurring those boundaries, it just seems sort of old-fashioned to me.
The kind of test limit of my work for myself is if I can ask myself if the question while I'm doing it, is this really writing? If it's an immediate question, yes, then I don't bother doing it. But if it says to me, this can't possibly be writing, I'm just copying something. How can this be writing? Then to me it's extremely interesting. This is not writing, this is simply transcribing, as the famous Truman Capote on Kerouac. That's not writing, that's typing. Most beautiful thing I've ever heard. And at the end of the day, the actual physical activity of sitting down in front of the keyboard, moving the fingers into a word processing program confirms that it is in fact writing. It's not baseball.
Well, I think that's why the Poetry Foundation, his work just a week or two ago on the Poetry Foundation is actually going to be potentially groundbreaking, and that it's providing him with an audience he doesn't normally have.
I think it's like a literary bomb that maybe hasn't exploded yet.
Right.
He's put it there and it's kind of ticking away, and it's making us all very nervous.
Traffic is a full transcription of a 24-hour traffic cycle in New York, taken from the same source as the weather. They give traffic and transit on the ones, which means every 10 minutes. I chose the worst day of the year, the worst traffic day of the year, which was right before a holiday weekend. I got the idea from Warhol, who asked why he started his Death and Disaster series, and he said, it was Friday before the worst traffic day of the weekend, and a guy came on the radio and said millions and millions are going to die on the road this weekend. And that's the epigraph for the piece, and it is nothing but textual gridlock. This is from 6 o'clock in the evening. Probably the easiest way to talk about the East River right now, from the Triborough Bridge down to the Battery Tunnel, is just to tell you what's moving. And what's moving is the Manhattan Bridge going into Manhattan. Everything else right now is going to be a slow ride, no matter which way you go, including the Triborough, which is picking up a lot more traffic at this point. FDR Drive, you're jammed right into the Brooklyn Bridge, up to the 40s with an accident. Southbound delays, Triborough pretty much down to the Battery now, and West Side Highway is horrible. You got delays, 120s going south, and this delay goes all the way past Chelsea Piers, all the way down to the Battery. Yesterday, it took somebody well over 2.5 hours to cut through traffic like that, so budget at least 2 hours to use the West Side going south. And the interior avenues in the 40s and 50s, still a mess, especially going east on 9th Avenue. As you make your way across the Hudson through the Lincoln Tunnel, slower than the Holland Tunnel back to Jersey, there's a lot of 40th Street traffic at the Lincoln Tunnel right now. GW Bridge, don't bother. Upper level has got to be over a half hour, lower level near that much. Palisades Parkway would be a better approach. On the Deacon South, we still have that stalled bus by Willis Avenue in the right lane, and troubles on the Cross Island now in Queens at the Hempstead Turnpike. Tractor trailer wandered on, that's along the right side. As we've been saying, alternate side parking will be back in effect tomorrow. 611. Well, we were telling you how bad the rush hour has been in Manhattan, and through Manhattan it's only getting worse right now. We've been checking out the FDR Drive just south of the Triborough. This delay goes straight on down to the Brooklyn Bridge, and the north downside, there was a crash in the 40s with delays right up off the Brooklyn Bridge going north. And the west side, I'm telling you, it can take you upwards to 2.5 to 3 hours to sit in this mess from the 120s all the way down to the Battery Tunnel. I'm not seeing any movement right now around Chelsea Piers area. Around the 40s, up in the 90s, it's just horrible on the west side. 8th Avenue is going to be bad. Teens all the way up to Columbus Circle. You've got a ton of traffic right now on 7th Avenue out of the Central Park area all the way down going past to Times Square. Broadway has been impacted by that too. On the east side, steer clear of 2nd Avenue because of the dump off at the 59th Street Bridge and coming out of the Midtown Tunnel. You've got delays on 2nd Avenue from the 80s all the way down to the teens, and the east side streets through the 40s and 50s are an absolute mess. Big problems now across the East River. The only thing south of the Triborough that's moving is the Manhattan-bound Manhattan Bridge. Other than that, forget it. And right now, off the Verrazano, we've got troubles. Brooklyn-bound lower level, there's an accident. It's a flipped-over car. The Brooklyn-bound lower level of the Verrazano ramp to the Belt. This will impact the upper roadway. So right now, coming off the Staten Island, coming out of the Verrazano, it will be very slow.
challenge for students is that they're all too happy to not want to read, and usually the role of the text is to sort of either it's a requisite task that they have to attend to, that's something that they have to read and they sort of resent it, or it's something that they feel they need some kind of information, and so they want to digest it as quickly as possible and find out what they need in order to just regurgitate that knowledge back. And so the sort of conceptual literary artifact, I think, challenges them in a way which at first they're incredibly resistant to, and at least in my experience, then they're incredibly excited by it. Sort of somehow once they sort of understand what that project is, it opens a whole new possibility, and then they suddenly become very playful and they want to do conceptual papers and they want to respond to the exam in a conceptual way, and can they sort of have that more playful, innovative response, and that's, I think, actually the revolution in a way that I think perhaps students can respond to Goldsmith in a more interesting way than scholars can sometimes. Scholars are really angry at this work. And I never cease to be amazed that students see. I mean, I think perhaps Goldsmith is sort of making us uncomfortably aware of how really conventional and traditional the academy is, even though we might think that we're teaching contemporary writing or innovative ideas or the avant-garde. Actually, we are incredibly conservative in what we're presenting to students. And students prove time and again that they're actually ready and willing and able to read much more innovative texts and to think in a more innovative way than we ourselves might be. I've talked to a number of people who are either friends with Kenny or great supporters, and privately there's oftentimes a moment in the conversation of a question of doubt, or suddenly this sort of that same anxiety. I think that is he maybe playing a joke on us? That seems to be the most common anxiety among even supporters of Goldsmith, that perhaps everyone is slightly afraid that this is actually some sort of hoax that he's playing, and that people seem secretly afraid that perhaps they're not seeing through the joke, or that they're not in on the joke. That was the response that Gertrude Stein met for so many decades, that people really thought she was playing a joke on the literary world, and certainly the volume of language in number 111 or in Soliloquy or Day seems to challenge readers in the same way that Stein was challenging. Very difficult after reading Goldsmith to then pick up any writer, even a writer that's considered incredibly disjunctive. Suddenly someone like Pound or Eliot or Zukowsky just seems incredibly clean and sort of artificial, and in no way difficult to interpret. It's sort of seemingly just very crafted, very controlled. So I in 2000 saw Goldsmith in an undergraduate class talking to undergraduates at the University of Buffalo, and the students were sort of bringing up all of these other writers that they thought were interesting, primarily language poets, post-1960s writers, and whereas most teachers, I think, would sort of say, oh yes, that's a good idea, and that's a good comparison, or that's an interesting parallel, Kenny just sort of smiled and said, wow, what I'm doing is so much more avant-garde than that, isn't it? And he just sort of like laughed at their ideas of the innovative, and was just pointing out that what he was doing is far more innovative, and in a way he's right. I mean, it could be seen as arrogant, but I think again the comparison to Stein is fitting, that Stein was happy to say that what she was doing was far more experimental than Proust or Joyce or anyone else at that time, and I think Goldsmith has a right to make that claim now.
Mm-hmm.